Hey guys, Coach Kurt. If you don't know me, I am a control tactics instructor, taser instructor, use of force instructor here in the region. I've been doing martial arts 40 years, law enforcement for 27 years plus, and for the last 12, 13 years, I've been a field training officer, control tactics instructor, use of force instructor, taser instructor for the agency. So why am I making this video? Well, it was by request. Another instructor had some questions about something that came out in the new control tactics curriculum that came from the academy, and it talked about a wrist lock takedown into I think it said rolling arm bar technique. And I'm going to cover that here. So we're going to cover some wrist locks in general. Don't think for a second that I don't think striking is very important. In Japanese martial arts, it's called a temiwaza. Vital point striking. Here is a good example of when it is objectively reasonable to use something like striking. So that is still covered in our control tactics. There's another person in this car. Is that another bad guy? Is that person got a gun? You don't know. He has to finish off this situation quick, get control of the situation quick. So he does what I call the classic hockey jersey grab and then pops the guy in the face twice. He's got to control a lot of moving parts here. He's arresting this individual, and he still has to keep looking up at the person in the vehicle. The guy's not cooperating, tries to get up, he knocks him down, pops him again, like, hey, cooperate, let me put you in handcuffs. And now we have another person coming up. Is he here to help the police officer? I suspect yes, but you don't know until you know. So a lot of moving parts. So please do not in any way, shape, or form think in this video I'm suggesting that you should only grapple. Everybody thinks of me as the jiu-jitsu guy. That's not entirely true. I do what's called Taiho Jutsu and Hapkido. I've got a 5th degree black belt in Hapkido and a 1st degree black belt in Taiho Jutsu, and I teach that. This is what I think they were requesting information about. This is the outside wrist lock takedown. In Japanese, korogaishi. There are Japanese jiu-jitsu systems that use different names. But guys, we're cops here in America. You don't care about the Japanese terminology. This is an outward wrist lock takedown. This is it from its origin in Aikido or Aikido Jiu-Jitsu, and that's how it would look in a kata form. This is Ramsey Dewey out of Shanghai, China. He's probably my favorite MMA YouTuber, demonstrating a good way of utilizing the wrist takedown for MMA. And he is a world-renowned coach. And throughout this video, you'll see me trying to entice you with above and beyond basic wrist locks. Part of Taiho Jutsu, Hapkido, Jiu-Jitsu in general is hip throws, shoulder throws, leg throws, and you should be practicing it all. But at the very least, you know, be pretty good at these wrist takedowns. Here's a Hapkido variation. Here's back to Ramsey Dewey. Guys, I have used this takedown in the field. If you are willing to stay the entire video, if you're not watching this on my YouTube channel, you will see, for the agency's eyes only, video clips from my using it in the field or variation of wrist locks in the field. That way you can say, yeah, okay, this stuff actually works. But this is the wrist lock takedown in question. I believe that this is what they refer to. The terminology in the paperwork said wrist lock takedowns, but this is probably the most common wrist lock takedown. Here I am pummeling, going to the wrist lock takedown. This is me drilling with my former MMA coach. Pummeling, super important. We cover that in control tactics and how I do a pass by and go to the wrist lock takedown. Here I am demonstrating, well, what if they don't cooperate? And this is in techniques in general, but this is a flow drill that I practice with my trainees outside of law enforcement. I have some private students from time to time. And I go for the trip, he readjusts. Now do I do a couple of temiwazas and go through the takedown again. It's super important to be able to adjust. Here's what's called an ankle pick. I use that as a variation to take it down. So I go for that again. I go for the trip. He moves. I have to readjust. You have to readjust. That is why it is important for you to do this stuff outside of law enforcement. You need to find a local gym that does some kind of Japanese jiu-jitsu, Taiho Jutsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, judo, Hapkido. These are all great. You have to be able to adjust on the fly and be able to flow with the movement that the bad guy gives you. In this case, he adjusts again, so I use what's called a tenkan turn. It's a circular centrifugal takedown. Back to the wrist throw, because that is the whole point of this video, is the outside wrist takedown. And I will then show you what I think they mean by the shoulder roll lock. It's a pin technique in Hapkido, and I will show it to you. And we'll cover handcuffing as well, some of the agency specified handcuffing. Here he's saying you want to control the wrist around the neck of the wrist, not in the forearm. You don't have the same amount of control if you do it that way. Here he is saying you grab the wrist, not the forearm. See how easy it is for that guy to twist his training partner to twist out? Now it makes it more difficult. He has more control of his uke, which is his training partner, the bad guy. And again, lower right corner, I'm just demonstrating other ways of training, different kinds of takedowns and throws. Because remember, everything in law enforcement starts on your feet. You don't go to the ground unless you have to. That is why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is not my only go-to. I believe in having a strong standing game, being able to throw, take people down, adjust, and not just take them down hardcore, but does it happen in an objectively reasonable way? Does it meet standards for Graham v. Connor? See how he's off balancing him? I love how he did that. In Japanese jiu-jitsu or a Taiho Jutsu, we call that kazushi, being able to take somebody's balance. No techniques, regardless of what style it comes from, works if it's a takedown anyway, or a throw, if you don't take the person's balance. And he's using a centrifugal turning motion to get the guy off balance. You'll see that where he grabs the wrist, moves to the outside, uses a turning motion. We call that a Tenkan turn, and boom. So this is me teaching it from your standard come-along location. This is that wrist lock. You're twisting and taking them down. Now, guys, there's a good chance if you do this wrong or fast or they resist, their wrist could break. Who broke their wrist? They did by resisting. Here I am showing you have to drop the weight. You don't bend over at the waist, you bend over at the knees, and you're taking them down using, basically, you're peeling their pinky and knuckles back towards their buttocks and the ground behind them. Here I am going back in a slower motion spin-off of the pummeling technique. We will do this if we have time in control tactics. That is a chuck by or a throw by way to get to the wrist. That is my favorite way. Pummeling is a very practical exercise to fight in the clinch range. Here's a variation of that again. It's actually a four-corner throw takedown or a key lock takedown, but it's basically a variation of the wrist lock, except I'm not using the wrist. Now, back to the wrist, redirecting the head, taking their balance, and taking them down. Now, here's that arm bar I was talking about. This is, I call it the picture framing method. I will exaggerate so you can see what I'm doing. You're bending them over, bending one side of the picture frame, the second side of the picture frame, the third side of the picture frame, and you're corkscrewing the shoulder down into the ground. That is what you do to pin somebody, to take them down, to turn them over on the stomach. Now, I've got a crap load of videos on what to do if it doesn't go as planned and how to use jiu-jitsu to do it. But here I am demonstrating that if you do the typical knee on the shoulder, knee on the back, somebody who's super athletic and explosive or has any grappling or wrestling experience can probably blow themselves right out of that technique, right out of that position. And I'm saying stay off the neck. Shoulder and upper back is where you should be. If your legs or knee slips to the neck, adjust, get it off the neck. We all know that that's a bad thing. So here he is demonstrating. Again, my coach here at my old duty station, he was an MMA coach, my Krav Maga coach. This method is straight from Hapkido. It's a shoulder pin. Notice my right knee is by his hip, and I'm going to demonstrate that, and my left knee is by his head. I am basically like an arrow adjusting his elbow or pushing his shoulder into the ground. See how I have his arm cradled and into a cutting motion. I'm demonstrating that's kind of a cutting motion. And I'm putting a lot of pressure on the shoulder joint and pinning it to the ground. He's going to give me a little bit of resistance here in a minute to show that it works, but then boom, straight to a handcuffing. That is my preference. If you have that method or prefer to approach from the side, that is my preference than putting my knee on the shoulder, knee on the back. Guys, you know this from the academy. This is a controlled, lay down on the ground, put your hands out by the side, cross your ankles, lift your feet to your butt. And then you take control of the toes. Why do I say the toes and not the inner part of the foot? You have more control if you have the toes. This works even if they have shoes on. Stay away from the step, grab the toes. You get much more control. You go down onto their shins, and I like to grab the belt or waistline or shorts. So if they start bucking, you have control. And here I'm demonstrating just putting the handcuffs on. Guys, the instructors at the academy put a lot of effort into improving that this technique works. It actually is a really good cuffing technique. My only concern about it is what happens if they have really bad knees. That might cause them to resist you just because of the pain response. What do you do if they're hiding their arms under their chest? Here I am getting on his back, a rear mount, and you saw me grab his head, and now I'm relocating his head over his shoulder. All I'm doing by manipulating his head is trying to unalign his spine to take away his power. You see me dig under his arm like that. I can show you this in control tactics if you want to see it, and you pop the arm out. This is a really good way to get somebody's hands out from underneath their chest without having to use your baton. Maybe you can't get to your baton without losing balance. Here's my MMA coach doing it to me. He's realigning my head so I have no strength in my spine. See how he's using a thumbless monkey grip to pop my arm out, kind of like prying it out. See how he's using his knee to keep my hand from sliding down. He's got me in a really good position of control. He's doing it to the other side, and bam, I'm ready for handcuffing. The big problem is what happens if they manage to get up on their knees. And here he is demonstrating again, and we'll get to the question and concern about them getting on their knees. Here I am demonstrating, or coach is demonstrating the Addams family, the thing method. You just put your hand under their elbow and you walk up. You do this in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all the time. It doesn't matter how strong they are. Guys, this works. I've used this in live rolls all the time. So here's what I'm talking about. Here's another variation spin-off. That's Coach Doug, long retired from our agency, up in the right-hand corner, doing a different variation, me demonstrating the same variation. I don't like this variation as much, but it's more comfortable for some people. So it's super important to know multiple ways of doing it. But the question I brought to you is what happens if they get up on their knees? If they get up on their knees, they can power up and knock you off. This is what happens all the time to cops. So what you do is you jet your legs under their thighs, their pelvis area, into the spot. You fill the spot that they've created by getting up on their knees, and then you jet your knees in, and it takes their legs out from under them. Guys, this works. This is what I call the Hickson Gracie approach to it. He uses this for a rear naked choke or blood choke, but I'm using it for handcuffing. And here he is giving me some live energy. I've got to hold it, so I'm trying to take his... I went to a modified side control. I'm using the Kimura grip on his right arm to control him. He's bucking and moving. He's giving me bad guy energy, not necessarily jiu-jitsu energy. I was able to recover and go into armbar. So guys, just because you lose the position doesn't mean you need to lose. You can say, okay, I'm going to flow with the energy and I'm going to go to a different technique. That is the importance of multiple training. You can't just learn 8 hours a year control tactics and think you're going to be able to do this in the field. I promise you, you won't. Find something. Go someplace. Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, Taiho Jutsu, Hapkido, whatever. I don't care if it's karate at the Y. Just do something. Boxing is great. Do CrossFit. Stay fit. Here's that shoulder pin I was talking to you about. This is my favorite method outside of the rear mount. This is a Hapkido variation. This is straight out of Hapkido. I learned this when I was in Hapkido. This is straight out of Taiho Jutsu. This is Aikido as well. All right, guys, so you've seen enough. But again, to remind you, when you're taking somebody down, regardless of how you're taking them down, it is off-balancing, kazushi. Here I am using the long guard method or flinch response. I call it instinct-based tactics. Here's the shell, my favorite. I'm using a knee bump takedown. And I go to my very favorite position, the twisting arm control, or also known as gift wrap. And this is a great position to hold somebody and kind of just ride the position and talk to them. Dude, it's just a warrant. You'll beat me out of the jail. Relax. And then eventually they blow their steam and you put them in handcuffs. Guys, this is the pummeling I was telling you about, going to an arm pass. A lot of the things you saw today is arm pass material. There's duck unders. There's other ways to get to the back or to the side, but the arm pass is what I like to teach in control tactics. And that's a great way to get to the come along position or the escort position that you start in from the arm bar position or the wrist lock takedown. There's so many things that you can do from that position. My favorite is the Russian 2-on-1 takedown, but that's neither here or there. But you can see how important it is to be able to get to the outside or to the back. And pummeling is the key. Again, the arm pass, again, to demonstrate, you see top right, me demonstrating in slow motion. The arm pass, again, leads to everything you need to get to the outside. And I'm not suggesting there's other ways to do it, but there you have it, guys. I hope you liked it. I know it was a long one, but please, please, please practice, do something. I hope I answered your question, everybody. All right, everybody, take care.
Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out.